Two neighbors, same street, same jobs, same salary. 20 years ago, they both bought identical washing machines. In year 4, the first neighbor's machine started making a grinding noise. He called a repair shop. $80. He paid it. The machine kept running. The second neighbor heard the same noise in his machine. He looked up the repair cost. $80, he said. I'll just get a new one. $600 on a new machine, then $600 again in year 9, then again in year 14. By the time 20 years had passed, the first neighbor had spent $80 on a machine still running in his laundry room. The second neighbor had spent $1,800 to wash the same amount of laundry. The first neighbor drives a car that is 12 years old, clean, well-maintained. The second neighbor leases a new one every 3 years and cannot figure out why he never seems to have money. Neither of them earns more than the other, but one of them is building something quiet and solid, and the other is on a treadmill that never stops. Before we go on, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if you're loving this story, subscribe, because tomorrow we have something extra special waiting for you. There is a Japanese word for what the first neighbor understands, mottainai. It has no clean English translation. The closest version is, what a waste. But that phrase carries no real weight in English. We say it about a missed goal in a football game. In Japanese, the word carries something closer to grief. When a grandmother watches her grandson throw away food that could have kept for tomorrow, she says, mottainai, not as a scolding, as a small, sincere sadness. Something of value was lost that did not need to be lost. The word has roots in Buddhist thought, in the belief that objects carry worth beyond their price tag. Wasting a thing in this view is a form of disrespect to the material, the labor, and the person who made it. For centuries, this idea sat at the center of Japanese domestic life. Then in 2005, a Kenyan environmentalist named Wangari Maathai stood before a United Nations conference and held up a single Japanese word. She said it contained an entire philosophy that the modern world had forgotten. She asked the world to adopt it. Most of the world did not listen. The Edo period in Japan, roughly 1600 to 1868, was so resource-conscious that entire professions emerged around the idea of repairing and reusing. There were tofu lees sellers who collected the pressed soy residue from tofu makers and sold it as food. There were umbrella repairers, pot menders, and merchants who bought old paper to be pulped into new sheets. Edo, one of the largest cities on earth by the early 1700s with over 1 million residents, produced almost no landfill, not because people were noble, because waste was money that someone else could use. Every broken object had a buyer. Every leftover had a cook. The city ran on a circular economy, centuries before anyone coined that phrase. Japan did not abandon this entirely when it modernized. The grandmother who lived through post-war scarcity passed her habits to her children, and some of those children passed them further. The philosophy survived in households where it was never called a philosophy. It was just how you lived. We live now in the age of planned obsolescence. Companies design products to fail on a schedule. Printers run out of ink before the cartridge is empty. Phones slow down with software updates so you feel pressure to buy the next model. Sneakers are built to look worn within a year. Appliances are manufactured to need replacing in 5. And we have accepted this so completely that when something breaks, the first question most people ask is not, "Can this be fixed?" It is, "What should I replace it with?" There is a term for what companies do to accelerate this: psychological obsolescence. They do not wait for your phone to break. They change the camera shape so the phone looks dated. They introduce a slightly different color so your current model looks old. They update the logo so the version on your shirt feels behind. The goal is not to sell you something better. The goal is to make you feel worse about what you already have. Once you feel that dissatisfaction, the purchase is almost inevitable. You are not responding to a need. You are responding to an engineered feeling of inadequacy. Mottainai is a direct counter to this. It is the practice of deciding for yourself when something is finished, rather than letting a marketing department make that decision. Here is what the replacement habit actually costs. The average American household throws away roughly $1,600 worth of food every year. They spend around $4,000 on clothing, replacing items that could have been repaired or simply worn longer. Electronics get replaced on a 2 to 3 year cycle, spending $800 to $1,200 each time on devices that, in many cases, still function. Add it together, and you have somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000 a year spent not on new value, but on replacing things that were not truly finished. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. For most people, that is a full month of income. Gone. Mottainai in practice is built around 4 actions. The Japanese call them the 4 Rs, and none of them are complicated. The first is refuse. Before anything enters your life, ask whether it belongs there. The free gift with purchase, the gadget on clearance, the item on sale that you would never have bought at full price. Mottainai begins before the purchase, not after. Most waste starts with acquisition. The less you bring in, the less you have to manage, maintain, store, and eventually discard. Traditional Japanese gift-giving makes this concrete. Gifts are wrapped in furoshiki cloth rather than paper and plastic. You are not just giving a gift, you are giving a cloth the recipient can use again. The packaging itself has value and a second life. The act of refusing to create waste is built into the ritual of giving. The second is reduce. The things you already own, use them fully. Eat the leftovers. Wear the clothes you have. Use the pen until it runs dry. Reduce is not about deprivation. It is about pulling the full value out of what already exists. A Japanese household that buys a piece of fish uses the bones for broth, the skin for a separate dish, and the trimmings for something else. Nothing disappears into the trash, because nothing is treated as disposable. The third is reuse. A glass jar becomes storage. An old shirt becomes a rag. A paper bag gets folded and saved. Furoshiki cloth wraps a wine bottle 1 week and carries groceries the next. The same square of fabric serves for the rest of your life if you treat it well. The fourth is repair. This is the one the modern world has almost completely abandoned. There is an old Japanese art called kintsugi. A ceramic bowl cracks. Instead of throwing it away, the craftsman fills the crack with gold lacquer. The repaired bowl is considered more beautiful than the original because it carries a history. Its damage is not hidden. It is honored. Japan has a textile equivalent called sashiko. When fabric wears thin or tears, it is reinforced with decorative running stitches, often white thread on indigo cloth. The mended area is not concealed. It becomes part of the garment's design. The repair is visible proof of care. A jacket with sashiko stitching on the elbow has a story. A jacket with a patched elbow hidden under another patch has the same story but told honestly. Most people do the opposite of all this. The cracked bowl goes in the trash. The scuffed shoes go to the donation bin. The worn jacket gets replaced. We are only comfortable with things that look new. But new is not the same as good, and discarding is not the same as moving forward. Strip away the philosophy and look at pure numbers, and Mottainai reveals itself as a system for keeping money. Every time you replace instead of repair, you spend money twice, once on the original purchase, once on the replacement. But you also lose the remaining value of the thing you threw out. A $200 jacket with 3 more years of life in it, discarded because a button came loose, costs you far more than $200. It costs you the jacket, the replacement, and the years of service you abandoned. Multiply that across everything you own, and the picture becomes clear. Before discarding anything, the Mottainai practitioner asks a short series of questions. Is this broken? Can it be fixed? Does the fix cost less than a replacement? If yes, fix it. The math is simple. Most people never run it. Now run the larger number. If you stop wasting $6,000 a year on unnecessary replacement and invest $500 a month instead, at a conservative 7% annual return over 20 years, you are looking at roughly $260,000, not from a raise, not from a second job, from stopping the drain that was already happening. This is not a wealth strategy. It is a subtraction. You do not need to do anything new. You need to stop doing the thing you are already doing. Japan has a category of shop called a recycle shop. You bring in what you no longer need. Someone else buys it for a fraction of the original price. The item keeps its useful life. No landfill, no replacement purchase. The value circulates instead of vanishing. Tokyo has hundreds of them, some specializing in cameras, some in clothing, some in musical instruments. The model works because Mottainai is not just a personal philosophy. It produces an entire economy built on things that last. Walk into a traditional Japanese home, and you may find a cast-iron tetsubin kettle that belonged to the grandmother's grandmother, not displayed behind glass, in daily use. Japanese lacquerware, properly maintained, lasts centuries. Wooden furniture made with traditional joinery, no nails and no screws, just precisely cut wood fitting into itself, outlasts the people who built it and the people who inherited it. These are not antiques in the Western sense. They are functional objects that never needed replacing because they were made to last and maintained as though they would. Most of us have never asked how old our oldest functional object is. For most Western households, the answer is embarrassingly recent. 3 years, maybe 5. The Japanese approach produces a different answer because the question being asked is different. Not what is new, but what still works. And when something still works, the default answer in a Mottainai household is to use it. There is a version of Mottainai that goes beyond objects. The same logic applies to time. 2 hours spent on content that leaves you feeling hollow is not relaxation. It is waste of a kind that cannot be repaired or recovered. A meeting that achieves nothing is the same. Mottainai, at its fullest, is a relationship with your own attention, not just your possessions. The Japanese have a concept called shokunin, which describes a craftsman who has dedicated a lifetime to one skill. A sushi chef who spent 40 years mastering a single technique. A carpenter who builds furniture intended to outlive the buyer. This is Mottainai applied to a life. You have limited years and limited mornings. The question Mottainai asks of those years is the same one it asks of a cracked bowl. Is there life left in this? Am I using it fully? This is not about withdrawing from pleasure. It is about the difference between consuming something and actually experiencing it. The meal you cooked yourself tastes different from the one you ordered because effort was involved. The book you finished carries more weight than the 10 you started and abandoned. Mottainai asks you to finish what you begin, to be present with what you have, to treat your own time the way a craftsman treats good wood. There is a practical experiment worth running. For 1 week, do not throw anything away without first asking whether it can be repaired, repurposed, or simply finished. The half-used shampoo bottle. Add water and shake. 3 more washes are in there. The leftovers in the back of the fridge. Build a meal around them instead of ordering food. The shirt with a loose button. Sew it. The video game you bought and played once. Sell it to someone who will actually use it. Run this mindset for a year and the changes add up. Spending drops because you're working through what you already own instead of replacing it. There's a lesson about time here. Repairing a shirt takes 20 minutes. Ordering a replacement takes 30 seconds. Then you stop thinking about it until it breaks too. Mottainai asks you to spend small amounts of time now to save larger amounts of money later. Most people have that trade backwards. They spend money to save time, forgetting money is just hours they already worked. Something else changes too. When you stop treating things as disposable, you start buying better things. A jacket you plan to repair for 10 years is worth paying more for than 3 cheap ones that fall apart in a season. Buy once, buy well, maintain, use fully. Japan's relationship with Mottainai comes from real scarcity, limited resources on an island nation. For centuries, waste wasn't a moral question. It was survival. That history built a culture of care, of using things to the end. Modern life removed the scarcity, but not the need for care. Abundance doesn't solve waste. It multiplies it. When everything is cheap and replaceable, nothing feels worth protecting. The grandmother who saves her plastic bags and finishes every grain of rice isn't struggling. She's practicing something the world quietly abandoned. That kind of wealth doesn't announce itself. Furniture that's old but cared for. Nothing much looks like it's happening, but the money is there, compounding, in the debt that never accumulated. That's what our first neighbor was building, not through a higher salary, but through refusing to waste what he already had. His washing machine ran 20 years. Somewhere in his house, there's a savings account the second neighbor can't explain. Here's your challenge. Find one thing you've been planning to replace. Before you order a new one, ask, is there life left in this? Tell me in the comments, what's the most valuable thing you've ever repaired instead of replaced? The second neighbor is still buying washing machines. You don't have to be him. That's our story. If you enjoyed it, hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. And tomorrow, more stories are waiting for you. Thanks for watching.